So I finally read Aurora Rising. It's only been 2 years. Full disclosure about this review, I started reading the second book, like, right after I finished the first one, so some little details are kind of blending together, like I can't remember if they were in the first or the second one. But I will try and contain spoilers to a specific section so you can skip past them. Okay, so there are 6 main characters, each of which have a POV, which would normally be a turnoff, but it was done kind of okay in this one. 5 of them are assigned to one particular ship because no one else wanted them. It's very much a ragtag crew. The leader is Tyler Jones. He's quote-unquote good boy, he follows the rules, he's very religious, he's very loyal and honest and all that. He was slated to have the best crew and the best ship, but the night before the choosing ceremony, he ended up saving some girl out in space and he missed it, so he got the rejects. Then there's his twin sister Scarlet, who is the diplomat of the group. Think like Deanna Troi, but she's made out with every guy on the ship, and has memorized the order that she dated them, assigned them numbers, and a list of pros and cons for each. She's very empathic, like to almost a magical degree. And, but mostly she's very non-serious and jokes around a lot. She's a party girl. Then there's Kat. She is the one who flies the ship. She's the tattooed girl with an attitude, childhood friend of Tyler and Scarlet. And there's a history there. Then there's the girl on the cover, Aurora, also known as Ori. She's been in cryosleep for 200 years, which, as you would imagine, are very disorienting. Last on our human list is Zila. She is the science/medical officer, whatever, on the ship. I have some concerns about her character. I will discuss them later. Next up are the 2 aliens, Finian and Callus. Finian's a ship mechanic. He's super duper uber not serious. He's joking all the time. He's always cracking jokes. He's got witty comebacks. Honestly, I thought I would hate him, but he grew on me very quickly. Callus is a space elf. He's the muscle. The red shirt. Actually, he's got red on his uniform. He comes off as pretty serious, but when you get in his head, you realize he's not really that serious, and he just kind of keeps to himself because of how he's been treated. So that's the crew, and this absolute mess sails off into space on a super important mission that will ultimately determine the fate of the entire galaxy. You know, standard fare, but also tried and true. So overall, I like this book. I did like this book. I realized that more than half of this review is going to be me picking at it a little bit, but I did like the book. I especially loved like the alien cultures. It's interesting because the writing style is very I hesitate to say fanficky, but it is a little fanficky. I think it's for like the younger spectrum of young adult, so it fits. But I was not expecting the level of like depth with that writing, like that combo. I could tell that the authors put thought into the aliens, because it felt like when you were in their heads, it felt like they were actually aliens and not just human, like differently shaped humans. So that's a good point. Another good point, they did not shy away from the gore. Maybe that's a bad point for some people, but I was not expecting to have a person squished like a freaking ketchup packet. I was not expecting that, but it happened. Also, I like how they handled Finian's mobility issues and like how he interacted with the world. That could have went really bad, although, you know, to be fair, maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it didn't seem like, you know, a thing, because sometimes people make it a thing and you just feel that it's wrong that it's made a thing. So that didn't happen, at least I don't think so. So that's another good point. So what I'm talking about with Finian is he had like a plague when he was a child and it like completely ravaged his body. So when he is in like normal gravity, he needs this kind of like exosuit to like move around and stuff. And I thought that was like super freaking cool. I was like, oh man, future tech, amazing. And then I found out that he made it himself, which also is super cool for Finian as a character, but doesn't say very much about the world, the universe that this takes place in, because like some kid could make an exosuit that's like this good. Why isn't this like a thing that's available for people? I also liked that Scarlet, the twin, even though she's like the character I usually hate and can't stand, I don't hate her. I don't really hate any of the characters. Let me take that back a little. I did not like Kat too much. Okay, let's just say she's not my favorite character. But I didn't hate her to the point where when I got to her point of view, I was like, oh god, it's her again. I didn't feel like that for any of the characters. Don't like maliciously jealous people. How about that? Maliciously jealous people, not my cup of tea. Cannot stand them. Even so, did not hate her. Another thing I liked is how they travel. And there's this interdimensional space, like in between reality or space, in between space. So let's say like space is a plane, and you got this point and this point. It kind of like folded into each other to bring those 2 points together, and they travel in between that gap, and they call it the fold, which is like a real thing. Well, a real theory that astrophysicists have been tossing around, so that was pretty cool. Not entirely sure why everything is black and white in the folds. I could never quite get my brain to remember that everything is black and white until they mentioned it again. And also, what makes it kind of more interesting is that while you're in the folds, like you could hear whispers, echoes of other people, like it messes with your head. Which, that's my jam. It kind of takes Fafner rules where, like no one's gonna understand that reference, but it takes Fafner rules where once you get to a certain age, you can't do it anymore because it starts messing with your head that much. So what happens is they gotta get these kids young into the military so they can do the traveling and fly the ships and everything. And all the old people, they gotta go into cryo sleep in order to travel safely between these spaces. That was a cool concept. Although along with that concept came the reveal that apparently the authors think that if you are exposed to a vacuum, your biggest concern is suffocating. Let that start the nitpick section. Moving on to nitpicks. The aliens, they were all the same. Same hair color, same skin, same eye color, everything. It's kind of weird. Like, they put so much thought into the cultures and how the characters interacted because of the cultures that it was really weird that they made them into like these identical people. Now you could say that because, it's a human perspective looking in, like, I guess you could say like all tabby cats look very similar. But we also get into the aliens' heads, so just strange to me. Another nitpick, what happened to all the other languages? They have like one language called Terran, which is English. So I'm kind of like, did they designate English as the official Earth language and then they still speak all the languages, or did something happen? Question. Maybe that's less of a nitpick and more of a question I have for the universe. The names they have. There's like special jobs in the Legion that they're in. It's called the Aurora Legion, which is basically like the intergalactic version of the UN. And the cat's eating, sorry if you can hear that. But they have designations called like Alpha, Face, Tank, Gearhead, and these are like official names. Why? Another thing, I had to scroll back to the start of the chapter more than once to figure out whose point of view it was, because I had forgotten and I could not figure it out by what was on the page. Never a good thing. The character Scarlet, as I mentioned before, she characterized her ex-boyfriends by number and pros and cons and like has them all memorized and stuff. And admittedly, this could be from book 2 because they blended together. But she mentions like these boyfriends all over the place, so it's not a spoiler or anything, just like random info she just dumps into whatever is happening. And one of these random info dumps was boyfriend number whatever. And pros was very kind, likes musicals, calls his mother all the time, and cons, you see what I'm getting at, right? No, Amy and Jay, I don't see what you're getting at. What are you getting at? So I'll file this one under nitpicky because it's not particularly egregious, but, you know, it's kind of like a personal thing of mine. There's something about straight people making jokes about gay people. It just kind of makes it feel weird. Because, like, two different straight people can make the same joke, same wording, same intonation, and one will just be making like a harmless, funny woohoo joke, and the other one will not be. And admittedly, I know nothing about Amy Kaufman, but I do know more than I want to know about Jay Kristoff. And I have no idea which one of them came up with this joke. And, let's say that I had no idea that he had co-written this book, because when I borrowed it, it just said Amy Kaufman, and that was it. And I had no idea who she was. And then, like, halfway through reading the book, I flipped back to the cover and I saw Amy Kaufman, Jay Kristoff, and I was like, what? So, there is suspicion. Hi, since filming this video, I have learned some more about Amy Kaufman. And the way I learned about Amy Kaufman is I learned about new Jay Kristoff drama along with the Emily Duncan drama, and Amy's name came up. So, I guess what I'm saying, that me giving her the benefit of the doubt in this video is a little outdated now, and kind of happy I didn't buy either of these books. So yeah, anyway, on to actual concerns. Zila, our girl Zila. So I don't usually watch reviews before I make a review myself, because I don't want to be like, you know, having influences change my opinion, because that will happen. But I wanted to see if people were talking about the thing that I was thinking, and no one was. So maybe I am thinking too much into this, but maybe I'm not. It just feels like all of the representation points were pushed onto these two characters, like they were contained in these two characters, Zila and Finian. Technically, Aurora / Ori, I'll call her Ori, it's easier to say, it's really hard for me to say Aurora. Ori is half Chinese, but like literally within the course of the book, she like discards the Chinese part of herself. Normally, that would raise questions, but within the book, it made sense because there was like family problems, more so like a racism problem. But then again, Jay Kristoff. So anyway, long story short, Zila is a black lesbian autistic girl. Now, they don't actually say that she's autistic. In fact, they say that she's a sociopath, which that's a whole other issue. But she's got all those little, you know, those little markers that writers and screenwriters and all that stuff usually use to identify an autistic character that is like genius, has no interpersonal skills, and has no idea why the thing she's doing is annoying everyone else. So just from like, you know, that, I mean, it's possible. It's not like something that would never happen. There are plenty of black lesbian autistic girls out there. But I have concerns because she was written this way. Also, in the second book, we get an explanation as to why she ended up autistic or autistic coded. I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna go into details on that because, you know, second book, but it gave me more concerns. So that's Zila. Now Finian, very openly bisexual, like stereotypically bisexual, like the kind of bisexual that other bisexuals get mad about because it makes them look like they're gonna cheat on everyone. But I get the feeling, even though like he does have a crush on these two characters and he would probably date either one of them, when he's saying things and like thinking things, I think it's more like, you know, talk as opposed to like actually him. So, you know, I'm not too mad about that one, but I could see how that would really irritate some people. So I'm gonna mention that. Main point, he's bisexual. Also, the mobility issues that I mentioned before. So we got Zila, black lesbian autistic girl, and Finian, alien, bisexual, mobility issue dude, and like those are the two characters. It's kind of hard to explain. Maybe you already see what I'm getting at. I don't have problems with these characters existing. It's just that everyone else in the book is like the straight white or like elf, which is a white-coated elf, and quote-unquote normal. So when you got all of these normal characters and then boom boom, it feels strange. These people who are none of the things, and these two very specific people who are all the things. Maybe I'm overthinking, but then again, J. Kristoff. Alright, so this next bit is about Callus, or Cal, Khalees. It might be a bit of a spoiler, so jump ahead to the next chapter if you don't want to hear it. Okay? Okay. So, he imprints on Aurora. You know, like Twilight. First sight of her, he's like, oh, that's my girl. Instant biological pull. It's called the pull. As far as imprinting goes, I was a little into it. Not because I like imprinting, but because I wanted to see how it would play out with this girl who, up until that point, she didn't like him. She thought he was handsome, but she didn't like him. She thought he hated her, and she kind of wanted to keep her distance. So I wanted to see how that romance would play out, because I knew it was going to become a romance. Obviously, it's going to be a romance. But now, all of a sudden, this dude is like totally in love with her, and his whole entire life is suddenly revolving around her. So I wanted to see the dynamic. And I got to see that for a little bit, until she found out about it. So it started off as like a hint as to what had happened, and as someone who has read Twilight, I immediately knew, oh, this is imprint, this is werewolf crap. He's a werewolf elf, okay. So I knew that was happening, and I felt like, oh, crap, this is gonna be terrible. But then we got the details on how usually imprinting is supposed to go both ways. Like, if one person feels it, the other person feels it, boom, they're together. Although honestly, it is said that just because they are together doesn't actually mean that they'll be good together. So I wanted to see how that would play out, because now Aurora is a human, she doesn't have the thing. So it's kind of like, I saw potential for a complex relationship development. And I'm all about slow burns and like, you know, back and forth kind of thing. I also saw the possibility of, questionable things happening that I would have hated. Incredible warrior man who is like super good fighter, strong, and all this stuff, suddenly completely infatuated with this girl who may or may not be infatuated with him. I saw potential for yikes. Thankfully that did not happen though. He's very cool. He keeps it to himself, he keeps his hands to himself, and he even volunteers to remove himself from the situation because it might make her uncomfortable. Which, that's a good point that can go up into the good point column. I am loving that. The bar is so low, but he hurtled over that. So if that is like a worry that you have when you encounter this in the book, it doesn't happen. Now, that does not mean that I'm totally in love with this relationship. None of that complex development that I was hoping for happens. She just immediately falls in love with him as soon as she finds out that this is the dynamic that's happening. And that's it. And honestly, I should have seen that coming. I mean, the first thoughts that we get from Ori after waking up from this 200-year hypersleep, cryo sleep, whatever you want to call it, not knowing what's happening, not seeing anyone she recognizes, being totally, like, lost. Her first thoughts are, wow, that dude in the next room is so freaking hot, and oh my god, does he not have pants on? Woo! Teenage girl stuff. I should have seen that. I really should have seen it coming. I mean, obviously, like, she was gonna jump all over the dude who was super hot and all of a sudden was all about her and his life is revolving around loving her and protecting her. Of course, she was gonna be like, yeah, no questions asked whatsoever. So, you know, that's my fault, you know. I will take that hit. That was me inserting more into a story that would not have had it if I had just thought for a second. Okay, end of spoilers. Here's where my criticisms get a little more real. So this book is reference after reference after reference after reference. And as a nerd, like a little gamer girl nerd, I love that. But at the end of the day, I I feel like because this book is aimed at younger adults, you know, like 14, 15, maybe even 13, to maybe early 20s. Like, it's not really aimed to people like me, like 30-something gamer nerds. So I feel like the average reader of this book will not realize how much of this book is from other stories. Like, straight out of other stories. Hi, editing me again. I swear this is the last time. But while editing this video, I realized that the way I'm talking about this makes it sound like they plagiarized a whole bunch of stories and like they just did something really bad. If I really thought that, this would be a completely different review. Okay, I know I'm saying like, oh my god, they stole this, but it's like me just getting into the talking about it. So what I was trying to say in this section is that it kind of sounds like this story was like a fangirl kind of crossover fanfic daydream that they had in their heads, and they turned it into a story. And when they did that, they didn't take the time or expend the energy to reconfigure the fanficky parts into something unique that was theirs. So yeah, with that in mind, let's continue. Like the Muther Bazaar was mentioned once. That is directly out of Final Fantasy XII. Now you could say, oh, they made up a word and put bazaar next to it, but like, really? Really? You're gonna make up a word like Muthru and put it next to bazaar, and that's a coincidence? You paired those up? I mentioned imprinting from Twilight. That's almost exactly copied from Twilight. Let's just be real. It was very much Twilight. Then there's the Maker. This one, obviously, there's only so many different words you could use in place of God as a creator, originator, blah blah blah. So, I mean, there's gonna be repeats, obviously, of people doing, like, you know, their artistic god stuff. It did make me immediately think of Dragon Age, but because of the limited vocabulary that can be used in this situation, I was like, okay, coincidence, whatever. Then one of the characters literally says Maker's Breath. Maker's Breath as like pejorative or whatever. No. You took that out of Dragon Age. There's no way that did not come directly out of Dragon Age. No way. There's no way you would think of put those two things together. Too much of a coincidence. Way too much of a coincidence for it not to be stolen directly from Dragon Age. Just saying. Who would even think of that? I was waiting for them to say Andraste's Flamin' Knickers. I was waiting for it. And then, you know what? After that, Callus. Cal sealed the deal on the Dragon Age thing, okay? An elf with white hair and a brand. A skilled fighter. In his group, he holds the role of tank, and he performs that duty very well. His friends consider him broody. They make fun of him every once in a while for that. He completely denies brooding at all. He was raised in a society. Very structured. Everyone is born into a certain group or caste, and that is where they stay for their entire life, and they have a specific function. He escapes from this society to live a free life, but those people still hunt him down to bring him back into that society. If you thought I was describing Callus, you would be wrong. I'm talking about Fenris. Don't think I didn't see what you did there, Amy and Jay. Seriously? What other conclusion am I supposed to draw here? It's from Dragon Age. It's Dragon Age in space, which should be Mass Effect, but it's not Mass Effect. What did you do? Also, a tiny little detail that is probably an actual coincidence is that Fenris's name is Little Wolf, and Callus does the werewolf imprinting thing. That one's probably an actual coincidence and not stolen, but I just thought it was an amusing detail. Oh my god, and I have not even touched on the massive parallels we can draw between the big bad in Aurora Rising and a certain race from Star Trek, or even the big reveal that was literally taken directly out of Star Wars. Can we just say that was Star Wars in that exact moment? You'll know it when you see it. I'm not going to say what it is, but as soon as you read that, you'll be like, did that just happen? Did that just happen? And honestly, I read this book so fast because I forgot about it. I borrowed it from the library, and I got a notice saying you have to read this book because they're giving it back at midnight, and I had to like buckle down and read the book. So I blasted through this book. I was recognizing the things that were references or just taken directly from other stories, and I made notes every once in a while. Like sometimes I'd read and be like, huh, okay. But I made notes on things that really stuck out to me. And even though I did that, when I got to the end of the book, I was still like, oh, this is a fun read, 4 stars. And then it sat in my brain. It had time to sit in my brain for a while, and I was just like, oh my god. Also, in one of the reviews I watched, they pointed out that something was lifted directly out of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I can't verify because I've never seen that movie, but like reading the rest of the book, I can believe it. I have no trouble believing that. Okay. Twilight, Star Trek, Star Wars, Dragon Age, Final Fantasy. There was an Attack on Titan parallel that I drew between the twins and Guardians of the Galaxy. That's not even counting references that were just plain old references. Like someone would mention like Legolas or Lord Elrond or, Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. It really didn't help that it had a very fanfic feel. And that's not to say anything bad about fanfics. I like fanfics. I'm writing one. But it had a very fanficky feel, and then it has all these like things like it's a massive crossover fanfic. And it's just little things like that just kind of like ugh. And this is a very confusing opinion to have, because I still really like the book, and I'm still reading the second book. And when the third book comes out, I'm probably gonna want to read that one too, unless something really bad happens in this book. I don't know. I just very conflicting emotions right now. And now that I realized who wrote the book, it's the emotions are even more conflicted. So I don't know. Anyway, those are my disjointed thoughts on Aurora Rising. What is life? What is life anyway? Like, comment, subscribe. If you have opinions, please share them, because I have questions about this book. I'd say don't spoil me, but I'm about to be done with everything that's already available, so there will be nothing to spoil. So feel free to put spoilers down there too. I will be finishing this book like today or tomorrow. Okay, so if you plan on reading this book in the future and you don't want to be spoiled, end the video now, because I want to make notes of a prediction that I have, and it will be a little spoilery. Also, if my prediction is right, I could ruin the entire series for you. That's also a warning. So, without further ado, let it be known that the 67% mark of the first book, my prediction for what's going on, the whole crew is sending messages backwards through time to themselves. And that's why Ori was speaking backwards. Like, they're actually going backwards through time. And that's how all this stuff is falling into place perfectly, because them in the future is setting it up to happen like that. That is my prediction. Also, in the second book, we discover why she's like this. Cat! Excuse you, ma'am. You gonna lay down? You just pressed all sorts of buttons. I really hope you didn't do anything. Yeah.